All right, Bermuda Championship. We got to talk course. We got to talk weather. We've got to talk ownership. Ownership numbers just came through. I've got your questions in here. I'll roll through as many as possible. This, of course, brought to you by Jock Market. Real quick, we're going to talk about Jock Market. However, what you need to know is that there is a cash market this week. I believe this is the first time there has ever been a cash market during a cut event. So what that means is there's going to be a lot of value. There is going to be a lot of money up for grabs, a lot of good stuff going on. So I will talk about Jock Market in just a bit. Bear with me as I kind of jump around here to different screens. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your attention. If you can do me a favor and smack the like button for me, that would be great. First things first, let's go through the weather. So I'm going to go to Weather Underground here, and I'm going to look for the weather in the Bahamas and try to get actually close to, let's see if Port Royal has a station nearby. I cannot type. Port Royal, no. Okay, so I'll find the closest. Southampton, okay. Southampton, Bermuda. Am I crazy? All right, I'll pull it up. We'll come back to it. Here's what we need to do. Let's jump into some of these questions. I'm very frazzled. I just finished recording another podcast, so I'm ready to rock and roll now. Brian Beaver asks, what are your thoughts about Max Homa this week? I know he's been awful since the restart, but what do you think of having a few weeks off could be beneficial? Okay, so not only for Max Homa, but let's talk about the players who literally everybody but Brendan Todd did not play last week, nor did they not play the week before. So I think this is very interesting for a lot of reasons. It relates to Max Homa, but I also think it relates to a couple other golfers that we can talk about in a minute. We don't know what these guys have been doing. Generally speaking, I think that looking at their long-term form is probably going to be the best thing to do. So someone like a Max Homa who's been brutal recently, right? I can pull him up here on the cheat sheet. He's $7,200. He's down here. And you can see miscut, 59th, miscut. It's just been really bad for Homa since the restart. Remember when we were leading into I think it all culminated around Genesis. He had 5, 6 top 20s in a row. He was absolutely scorching. It's not happening anymore. But I do think the time off allows guys to get back to their longer term mean. Not necessarily Max Homa, because for Homa, for me, there's almost a bit too much going wrong with his game right now. I'm actually looking closer to someone like a Patrick Rodgers. Don't kill me for saying that. Someone who has had one thing go wrong. Patrick Rodgers has had one thing go wrong, the putter, which is something he's usually very good at, and he's been bad for 2 weeks. Now he's had a couple of weeks off. I think that is a good opportunity to buy back in on someone like that because of the long-term form a little bit. Jesse says, Jesse answered a question. Sorry. How can we play for windy days Thursday and Friday in our DraftKings lineups? Well, first of all, you can do a couple of things. You can do Showdown. Obviously, you can just play your Showdown slates and try to stack. But what I see is this. So I've got the weather report up right now. So I'm using Somerset Village Station, which is one of the closer stations I could get in Southampton, Bermuda, to the actual golf course. And going hour by hour, Thursday morning, 79 degrees, partly cloudy, the wind not really kicking up all that much. I don't see anything to be too concerned about. Then you start getting into Friday, and I will tell you around Friday could be devilish, okay? So even Friday it gets a little windier in the afternoon, but Friday, 7 a.m., you're talking about 19-mile-an-hour winds, and that's sustained all day long. There is a chance. Then you get Saturday thunderstorms. Okay, so here's the way that I would play this. I don't know if it's going to be substantial, but I kind of want guys that are going to go out Friday morning. I think they might get just a hint of an advantage depending if this wind holds up. And of course, wind is variable. I also think that, and I typed up something really long in the Slack channel this week about how I think most people are overreacting to wind conditions. Because you don't know, I mean, wind gusts. Sometimes it doesn't always stay sustained. There are some holes that are more exposed than others. There are some golf shot some guys like hitting into a wind off the left if they have a right to left ball flight and they can hold their ball up against the wind. So it's not equal for every single player in the field at all times throughout the day. So I think in general, it is mostly an overreaction. However, there might be an advantage for the Thursday afternoon, Friday morning groups. So if you wanted to take a stack, try to take a stand on one of the waves over another, I think the Thursday PM, Friday AM wave is the better wave. Can you show the anti-Bermuda specialists? Yes, sure, I can. So that is going to be on the key stats, and let me load up the strokes gained database as well. Hank Hill also asks, when you played poker, did you start with cash, MTTs, or sit and goes? Listen, I played poker very recreationally in college. Never really took it all that seriously. It does mirror my my personal just kind of like risk aversion. Like I'm not very, like I play a lot of GPPs in daily fantasy, and I played a lot of big tournaments. Or they used to have those 180 man sit and goes, which I absolutely loved those things. Anti-Bermuda specialist. So this is on the key stats page. And a lot of guys have, different number of rounds, and a lot of guys are bad putters in general. But the worst putters on Bermuda grass compared to their baseline, that's what makes them a specialist or an anti-specialist. So the anti-specialists are Robert Garrigus, who is about a quarter of a stroke per round worse on Bermuda. Anirban Lahiri, same thing. Actually, I have this flipped. Sorry. There we go. Those guys are like 10th and 11th. It's Doug Gim who's actually the worst. Now, he's got one of the smaller sample sizes of all the data that we have, but he's over a half a stroke worse on Bermuda than normal. He's not a very good putter in general, but Bermuda really gives him issues. Ben Teller's pretty poor. Zach Sucher, Wes Roach. I don't know if you're actually interested in playing these guys. Unfortunately, the guys that are going to be popular, your Doug Gims, your Justin Suzz, even Tyler McCumber's name has been thrown around a little bit, all very much anti-specialists when it comes to Bermuda. Sports Guy says, enjoys the video, thanks, and new to the channel, thank you very much. Thoughts on Suh this weekend? So, that's a great segue. We should go on tour together because you just set me up for that. The only issue I have with Suh is the fact that he's an anti-specialist on Bermuda. And you could take that for what it's worth, right? He doesn't have many measured rounds in general on the PGA Tour, let alone on Bermuda. So you can say this is very, very much a factor of a small sample size. And I would agree with that. I would believe you. I would buy into it. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm a big fan of Justin Suh. I think he missed 10 of his first 12 cuts on the PGA Tour. He started to figure it out in the last couple of weeks. He struck it really well the last time we saw him, which was Shriners. I think he gained over 6 strokes on approach. I do like him. I think he's going to be very popular. And as far as playing him against Willett, if you could guarantee me the wind was going to kick the entire time, I'd probably like Willett more. Willett's a grinder. Tough conditions. If the scoring's not as great, he becomes much more interesting to me. So that's probably the situation that I could get behind a Danny Willett. Is this a tournament where the field is so bad that someone good has to win, and he references Zalatoris, because they're just that much better? Or is it a week where a crazy long shot should win? That's actually a pretty good question. It's an interesting question. So I think a couple of things here. I think that the top, call it 4 guys, Todd, Zalatoris, Doc, HV3, maybe that group, and maybe one more. I think they do own a lot of the win equity, but what you have to understand about golf is so variant in general. if they have, like, if Will Zalatoris is by far the best player in this field, he might win it like 12% of the time. And that would be a massive number, like absolutely massive, if Will Zalatoris or anybody won this 12% of the time. So I think it can be both, which I know is not really a great answer, but like it can be like, hey, one of these guys is like way more likely to win this event than everybody else, but also 88% of the time, some rando's going to win it, right? So like, that's what you kind of have to wrap your head around a little bit. I'm going to try, I'm actually in Nevada right now. So I've already entered my lineups from California before I got here. So I took a stars and scrubs approach. I wanted to get as many of the top guys that I could, like 2 of the guys in the top 10 or 12 of the pricing that I could, round it out with guys at the bottom, because I thought that the gap between the top players and the rest of the field was bigger than the guys in the middle and the bottom against each other, if that makes sense. So I went with a stars and scrubs approach. Tyler, thank you for the compliment. Thoughts on Tom Lewis outright? Let's pull up. I don't even know how much data I have on Tom Lewis because he plays so much on the European tour, but let me see what I have on Lewis. Let me see. Yeah, I don't have many measured rounds on him at all. The last thing I have is Shriners. I guess I have what he's done this season, right? So he missed. Oh man, it's been a tough run for him over here on the PGA Tour. Missed the cut at the PGA Championship, 51st at the Wyndham, 3 straight missed cuts, and then a 43rd at the Shriners. I don't like this stuff right here. I don't like the fact that he's been a losing ball striker basically for the entirety of this season in aggregate. So that to me is not very exciting, Tyler. I think it's no more than a dart throw, to be quite frank with you. I don't know if there's much evidence to suggest that Tom Lewis is going to figure it out this week. So if you like Tom Lewis and you bet him in an outright, you probably got a really good number on him, and you're throwing a dart. And if you're cool with throwing darts, that's great. But I don't see much evidence to support Tom Lewis in this situation here. T-Money says there's a lot of question marks as far as lower tiered golfers go. Should I even bother with the under 68? So kind of what I was referencing earlier, I think you should, even if we don't know their names, even if they're not playing well. There's going to be a bunch of guys who are sub 7K who make the cut. It's going to happen. Just the math. I mean, the math bears it out, right? There's only 30 golfers in this field. Top 65 and ties are going to make the cut. So a lot of those guys are going to make the cut. So I think that I'm happy to kind of pass off some of these guys near the bottom, and then also at the same time be able to get 2 of the top tier players. So I actually do think you should T-Money. It's okay if we don't have a lot of evidence for the guys who are, $65, $68, $100. Some of them are going to have to make the cut. So find something to hang your hat on and go from there. Greg is always in the chat. I appreciate it. He says, hit the like button, which you absolutely should. Trying to make these Wednesday chats a staple. Obviously on the road, a little bit more difficult this time, but we'll find a way to get it done. No worries. And yes, we are staying safe. We're now in Nevada. That was a planned trip. We did not have to evacuate from the wildfires. The evacuation zone was 1 street over. So, the ash was falling from the sky. It was really eerie and stuff like that. We kept a close eye on it. Seemed like they have it more contained this morning, but we drove to Nevada and we're all good now. So much appreciated. This is a good opportunity to talk about Jock Market because I mentioned it at the top. This is something we've been playing for, I guess, months at this point. They became, an official partner. We work together now, which I'm thrilled about because I really only like to work with companies that I'm super interested in. And they absolutely crushed Zozo Championship. They crushed CJ Cup with Cash Market. So if you're new to this, it is Stock Market DFS. It is, there's the IPO phase, which is open right now. And then you can bid on shares of golfers and then you can trade during the actual event. And I've been, the tweets that I put out, I love it because you guys get all fired up over it. I tweeted out, I had shares of Bubba last week. I think I had 8 or 10 shares of Bubba and I bought them at $3 for cash. And on Friday night, I was like, should I sell these or should I hold on to them? A lot of people had a lot of comments, and he finished T4, and I think his final share price was worth like $14 or something like that. So that's real cash. So there's two versions this week. There's the cash market again, and there is a $250 free roll on Jock Market. So what that means is you can enter the free roll, you can get $250, and I think first place is $50, or you can enter the cash market, which again, for the first time ever, there is a cash market for an event with a cut. Absolute bonker. So really, I'm looking at the lobby right now, and there are guys. I mean, IPO is kind of just open, but Stenson is $1.11. That's obviously going to go up. But if you get any of these really cheap guys and they make the cut, you're going to make money on almost every single one of these shares. So I'm looking through and there are so many values this week. Jock Market is basically running at an opposite of Rake right now. Instead of, raking contests, they're basically it is so soft right now. It is so easy to win right now. And I see the screenshots you guys send me. Some of you guys are killing this, absolutely destroying it. For example, right now, Will Zalatoris is $4. If he is the highest scoring player, if he wins the golf tournament, essentially, his share price will be $25. So if you can even get him at $10, get a share of that, and have it go up to 14, 18, 25, I think you're in business. There are, Doc Redman's $1.50 right now. Denny McCarthy's $1.50 right now. Michael Gligic is under $1.50. These are all, Scott Stallings $1.05. These are all guys that I would be bidding on. Patrick Rogers is someone that I have my eye on because I think all you guys are going to not forgive him like I forgive him. And then there is a deposit bonus for this week. So if you send me a screenshot, I hope you guys can see this, of take a deposit, take a screenshot of the lobby, and tweet it at me, at RickRunGood, and tweet it at Jock Market, and they'll put $10 in your account. I know they settled up with everybody from last week already, and it's free $10. I love supporting these guys. I think it's an absolute blast. It's easy to win money, and it is for someone who thinks, especially in terms of GPPs, buying low and seeing if these guys can snap off in a volatile sport like golf. I think Jock Market's absolutely doing it right. So I love it. Support them, please. They absolutely deserve it. Oh, boy. Okay, let's see. Trevel asks, I want to know the top 10 win players this week. I don't want to go on my super long rant about this, but that's not, there's going to be no metric for that, right? And you can look at apex height. Guys who hit it lower are probably better in wind. You can look at... unfortunately, you can look at, here's the problem. If a site, there are sites out there that try, I don't know if sites actually actively do this, but I've seen this try to be done before, where they say, oh, here are the events that there was windy conditions, and here are the results. So these guys are really good wind players. Sure, maybe. The problem with that is gusts, sustained wind throughout the day, guys playing the exposed holes at different times than other guys playing the exposed holes, shot shapes, general, also, maybe this guy just played bad because he was hitting it bad, not because it was windy, right? There's so many factors that a lot of people aren't quantifying for. I actually have this data, and I haven't released it yet because I don't think I would be doing my job to release this to you, because I don't think it's that effective, and I don't think it's that interesting, and I don't think it really tells a story other than kind of some randomness. So I've been reluctant to share that data and peg these guys as good in the wind or bad in the wind because I think it's misleading. I really do think it is misleading. The best ball strikers are almost always going to be better in all conditions. The guys like a Doc Redman, like a Henrik Stenson, even a Harold Varner III to an extent. Cameron Tringale hits his irons really well. Guys like that, a Russell Knox, for example, if you flush it, it's going to be better in all conditions. And I don't want to think too much into this because I think it is really overanalyzed, and there's a lot of flaws with the way it's being calculated. So that's my rant. I'll hop off the soapbox now, and we can go through some of these next questions here. Was I able to go back and see JT's bad drop at 16? No, it is still on my list. I have not pulled it up yet. We've been on the road a little bit. I will get to that. I do want to check that out. Let's see. I think the best possible lineup this week will be sub 40K salary. That's aggressive, but I think it could very easily be under 45,000. Thoughts on Josh Teater? Lowest round of his career was on this course. I've not even considered Josh Teater at any point this week. Let's go look him up. So, missed the cut the last 2 starts. This question says his lowest round of his career was on this course. Is that wasn't last year, right? Is that just like maybe he's played here before? I don't know about that. I've not verified that. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But I guess I could look at it this way. I really like the ball striking numbers, right? He's gone. I mean, he lost a hair at Rocket Mortgage, but basically 6 measured events in a row where he's gained ball striking. That's a really good sign. The putter is really bad. Now, if you know me, I'm #team no putt. But some of these he might be lost. You know, losing 6 shots at the Sanderson Farms, losing another 6.5 at the Charles Schwab, over 2 rounds in each of them. That's concerning. It's worrisome. It's almost like, you know, I guess Sergio did it, but like guys who lose 5 or 6 every week don't usually pop off and gain 2 over a single event. So I would be about 10% interested in Josh Teater, Tokyo Swan. Oh, man. Jacob says, might be a dumb question. No such thing. Does strokes gained tee to green encompass all other metrics? Yeah, so it's off the tee, approach, and around the green. So everything minus putting. And then the unofficial, so it's an unofficial stat. I use it. Other people use it too. Strokes gained ball striking. That is not an official PGA Tour stat. I have it here. That is off the tee plus approach. And then another unofficial stat, strokes gained short game, is around the green and putting. So you can kind of slice them up any way that you want. We need a name for basically strokes gained fairway through green. So guys it's the Webb Simpson stat. The Webb Simpson stat where he's not good off the tee, but he's awesome everywhere else. I don't know what we call that, fairway through green. That's also unofficial, but yes, that does encompass that as well. I used Weather Underground and I used Somerset Village Station. There might be one closer, but I think I'd have to, again, I'm juggling two laptops here. I think that's close enough, and I think it's a good indication. There might be one more closer, but I don't think so. At first glance, I didn't see one. Ollie Schniederjans and his brother are in the field. Jacob, I forget his name, but no, I don't think he makes the cut. We can look at his. I mean, I have not thought about Ollie. It's funny, you know, we're talking about so many guys that I've not even remotely considered over the course of you know, the last year probably. So here's Ollie. It's bad. Like, again, this is very much a dart throw. There's really nothing to back up that Ollie Schniederjans is in for a good week. You know, he's losing strokes off the tee in like 8 of his last 10 events. He loses on approach, sometimes in a big way, but he's about an average approach player, which makes him negative in ball striking, right? We just put those together. And then his putting, while sometimes good, is incredibly volatile, right? You can have a 3-tournament stretch where you go -7, -1, +4.5. That's really volatile. So that to me says there's at least 3 big question marks in his game. Missing cuts all over the place. We haven't seen him really contend or even finish in the top 25 anywhere in a while. So no, he's not for me. Yeah, Peter Malnati. Yeah, Malnati's interesting, right? I mean, so the comment is, am I in the twilight zone? I think he says, because Malnati's 30-1. I think that's just mostly because of the field, right? And it's because of the back-to-back top 5 finishes and the way he's done it. I will give Malnati a ton of credit here. I mean, you look at his career. These are career trajectories, which I absolutely love to see. Strokes gained off the tee, down and to the right. That's bad. Strokes gained approach, down and to the right, and then kind of levels out a bit, and a small uptick. That's the last 2 weeks. Strokes gained around the green, a little better than average, and then putting up and to the right. He's a great putter. So Historically great putter, excuse me. So what I will say is, I guess I understand it with this field, because if he's going to remain an above average around the green player, and he's going to be a great putter like he is historically, if he can continue what he's done in his last 2 starts with the irons, that is a different version of Malnati. Now, I don't know how long he can keep that going, but if he does that, he can contend as he did in those last 2 events. So I get it. I get it, I guess, is just what I'll leave it there. Any info on Mr. Watney? I'm assuming we're talking about Nick Watney, right? We can pull up Nick Watney. Also, I've got to load the ownership into the cheat sheet. I was about to do that, and then the last pod ran long. But we can talk about ownership. I do have it in my database over here on the side, so we can talk about ownership in a second. Remind me. Here is Nick Watney. Now, what is interesting with Nick Watney, unlike some of these other guys, is he at least does have legitimate top 25 upside in much deeper fields than this, right? 15th at the RSM, top 15th at the RSM, top 30 at the American Express, nearly a top 25 at the Honda, a 12th at the 3M. Like, yeah, he's going to miss a ton of cuts for sure, but so are a lot of these guys. So are a lot of these guys in this field. So being able to at least boast the fact that you have top 25 upside is different than what a lot of these guys can boast. So I am not excited to play Nick Watney, but I do like him more than a lot of his peers. Okay. Expected ownership. Bear with me. I'm just going to pull this up over here for a second. So I have it in my database here. I will post it to RickRunGood.com as soon as this stream is over. Here are some of the guys, or maybe all of the guys, that I think are projecting over 20% ownership. Will Zalatoris, Doc Redman. Schenk will be close. I have him a hair under 20%. Adam Schenk will be close. Denny McCarthy's right on the border. I have him maybe 21%. And then Peter Malnati and Harold Varner III. I know that's a lot of names, but those are the guys that presumably are going to be the most popular, which would indicate that some of the more interesting pivots would probably be Brendan Todd. I'm not excited about it, but I think that he could potentially be half the ownership of a Doc Redman or a Will Zalatoris, and he's not 50% as likely to win this golf tournament. Let me see what these other potential pivots are. Russell Knox checking in. So I have Knox at like 8%. So even if he's between 8 and 12, for someone who strikes the ball as well as he does, if it does get windy, some of these Euro guys love that. Get a little wind behind them, grind it out a little bit. Knox is kind of interesting. Okay. Let's see what else I have. A lot of these, I think projections this week are hard. Somebody mentioned Homa earlier. I have him like 6 to 8%, depending on the way that you look at it and the type of contest. I have him between 6 and 8%. Again, not much to go off of. Patrick Rogers, I have between 7 and 9%. So Patrick, I hate this. I hate that I'm going to go down with the Patrick Rogers ship. He should be tearing apart these fields. He should be top 20 in all of these fields. And he had a really bad putting performance in each of the last 2 weeks. He's notoriously a really good putter. Let's just pull him up real quick, and then I can stop talking about Patrick Rogers. But like every time I see this guy, the ownership's low. The bounce back ability, you would think, would be pretty high. Like, look at this. He loses 6.8 strokes putting at the Shriners. That's uncharacteristic. He loses 2.7 at Sanderson Farms. That's uncharacteristic. Look at his putting performances in like the 20 events before that. Now he's had a couple of weeks off, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I will give Patrick Rogers one more chance, and I apologize in advance. quite frankly. Drew says, love the show. Appreciate your support. Thank you. I really do. My take on Kiridat Affy Barnrat, I don't have one. Scott Stallings is kind of interesting. I think I tend to agree with that. So let's pull up Stallings real quick. Oh, and then what I want to do is I want to go to this this tool that I have on the cheat sheet. So here's what I love about Stallings. This column right here, strokes gained approach. Positive in basically, what is that? 8 of his last 10, 7 of his last 9, something like that. The off the tee stuff scares me because when things go sour, they go really sour for him. But I can find a way to back Stallings in this field. Again, not super thrilled about it, but I don't mind that all that much. Let me show you this tool. Let me see if I have this handy here. Again, apologize. I'm juggling a bunch of different stuff going on here. So this is on the cheat sheet. This is a breakout candidates tool. I love this. So what this does is it looks at golfers who are playing well from tee to green. So they are over their base, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. They're playing well from tee to green right now. And then it looks at how they're putting and if it's above or below their baseline, because the idea is over the long term, the putting will get back to what their long-term baseline is. That's the theory behind this. So if you have a guy who's putting it well, who's hitting it well, and then they're putting below their baseline, if that putting comes back, now you have a guy who's hitting it well and in theory will putt it better. So those are the guys that I think are breakout candidates. And it should be no surprise that Patrick Rodgers leads the way in this, right? Patrick Rodgers is right here in the upper left-hand quadrant. He is, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Yes, you can. Okay. So Patrick Rodgers up here in the upper left-hand quadrant is basically leading the way in this because he is like a shot and a half per round below his baseline on putting. Henrik Stenson in here as well. Wyndham Clark, Kevin Tway, Mark Anderson, Ricky Barnes, Justin Suh. Those are guys that I would target. Doc Redman, Josh Teater is in this group. The opposite side of this is guys who are hitting it poorly and they're getting lucky putting. That's like the worst combination because you'd think that the putting is going to fall off and go back to their baseline and they're not hitting it well. So you're really in trouble. So like Hunter Mahan, Kiridat, Affy Barnrat is in this group. Brendan Todd, unfortunately, in this group. So I use this a lot to kind of visualize groups of golfers that I think can find a way for each week. So I'll leave this up for a second as I answer a couple more questions. You guys can check that out. But obviously on RickRunGood.com, a version of it's on the cheat sheet tool. You can click through and find it there. Thank you, Evan, for the support. Stenson versus Pat Perez, probably a hair on Stenson. The heavy ball that he hits, the ball striking ability. He's doing this weird thing where he's like not playing all that much, but now he's playing these like tropical events, right? He played Punta Cana. He's going to play here. I think there's one more he said he was going to play. I'm trying to think what it would be. I can't remember. But like I think that the version of Stenson that I think we might get or could get is much better suited for potential 20 mile per hour winds. Talked about wind earlier. Shoot back. Willett was tipped to win the Masters because of windy conditions. Yeah, I talked about wind. There's a lot of factors involved. Did it rewind a little bit? I go on a long rant about it. All good there. Talked about Knox a little bit as well. Jay Bennett. I think he's a great ball striker. I think the windier it is, probably the better for him. And I also thought that he was coming in a bit under-owned, so I would consider it. Throw those questions in the chat. Hit the like button. I'll get through as many as I can here over the next 10 or 15 minutes. I'll just keep going. Greg says, is there any love for Rasmus? Yeah, of course. So if you're not familiar with Rasmus Hojgaard, he's 18 years old. He plays on the European Tour. He'll be 19 in December. He is incredibly talented, like raw talent, right? He had this stretch of golf at the end of last season on the European Tour where he went like second, third, sixth, and won, like in a 4-tournament stretch. He has that kind of upside. This field, I don't know what the strength of field number is. So the official World Golf Rankings, they obviously they have to compare strengths of field. So this field will have an official number to it. I haven't looked at it yet, but I imagine this field is going to be very similar to some of the European Tour events that he has had success in recently, or at least in the last 8 months or so. So it might be weird for him playing on the PGA Tour, but the caliber of play should be much closer to what he sees on the European Tour. Young kid, he's going to be volatile, but I think he has a heck of a lot of upside. Yeah, I talked about wind. You guys love the wind, so this is kind of what I'm talking about with my rant about why I think the wind play is completely overrated. And I'm guilty of this too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just pointing fingers here. There is so much anecdotal evidence of players in the wind remembering they played well in one tournament. Well, maybe they would have played well in that tournament if there wasn't wind, right? It's the same way as when it rains before a tournament and everyone's like, play the Bombers. You got to play the Bombers. It's going to take away distance from everybody. You got to play the Bombers, which is like maybe true, but not necessarily true. Guys who hit it far, you should play them everywhere. And also, it's not just guys who hit it far, it's guys who carry it far. If you're going to continue down that narrative, right? If Rory carries 98% of his distance through the air and Gary Woodland is 80% and he rolls it out because he hits that little stinger, that's much different. So yes, I have this data. I'm not trying to be like the king of morals or whatever, but like I respect you guys too much and the data too much to release the data to you because I don't believe in it. I think it is really flawed the way that a lot of people are trying to put this together. Until there's a better way, and I'll try to work on a better way, I'm not comfortable releasing it. So that's kind of my stance. We can go back and forth on who the best wind players are, and we can guess it's the ball strikers. They hit it the best in all conditions. They're going to hit it better in windy conditions. Yeah, again, Mark Immelman is completely dialed in to ball flights. And he says Stenson hits a heavy ball. He's absolutely right. And of course he does. We knew that. But we knew that before it was windy conditions. So I'm not, again, and as great as Mark is, that's anecdotal evidence. Mark has not seen, and I have not seen, and no one has seen every single golfer in this field hit balls in the wind. It's all anecdotal. Everyone will have someone who says, hey, Stenson hits it well in the wind. I saw Doug Gim play in windy conditions one day. It's just, it's impossible. Joe, hey Joe, good to see you, buddy. Very interested in the Jock market. Dude, it's great. It's like, I found it early. I was kind of addicted to it. I was like, this is, okay, so I've seen versions of this app before, or companies try to do this, because the idea is great, right? And we've seen this with, digital trading cards, buying into teams as stocks, buying into athletes as stock. There was a version of this in high school where you could buy, with fake money and then you could get prizes. But I've never seen Jock Market, or I've never seen a company do it as well as Jock Market, like execute it as well. It is basically Robinhood, which is like the most user-friendly, awesome stock investing app for DFS. And golf tournaments are like, the natural breaks in golf tournaments, Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, like it's perfect for this. Like I'm so bullish on the idea. I wish them all the success because listen, we want people to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo. Like the more competition, the better, the more innovation, the better. I love it, Joe. So hit me up if you have any questions, if I can help you with anything, but it's really something cool. And I got all excited and I lost my spot. Hold on. Here we go. Top 20s. Okay, Ventura was interesting. Wesley Bryan in a top 20 was fairly interesting to me. Really, any of these guys, even Justin Suh's number, I forget what it is, was interesting to me. I think there's going to be a lot of surprise top 20s this week. Oh boy. We've talked about a lot of these, so I'm going to continue to scroll. Scrolling. Hank Lebioda, I think he was also, wasn't Hank on this tool right here? Oh no, sorry, I was confusing it with Nelson Ledesma. This is who's hot and who's not. So this is guys who are playing over their baseline or under their baseline. So like no surprise that Peter Malnati is super hot right now because he's averaging like, let's see, he's averaging 2.8 strokes gained per round when he's normally a hair below average. So he's basically 3 shots better per round than his baseline. Also, no surprise that Max Homa is 4 shots worse than his baseline. I mean, these are guys who are hot versus who are not. I like this too. This is a way to really, really cool visualization on, and you can do this by different stats, right? So I could say who's hot on approach and break it down this way. I think it's really cool. What does Schenk need to do to become a competitive versus a cut maker? Unfortunately, for a lot of guys, those two things, they don't go together. So this is a good question here. So Jesse, thanks for the question. Unfortunately, these two things don't always go together, right? When your playing style changes and you start to take on more risk to ideally take on more reward, you lose the safety, right? You lose the floor. So I'm not saying this is Adam Schenk, but in general, right? Like there's a going for a green percentage, right? How many guys try to reach par 5s in 2? Is there trouble up there? So when you try to, instead of laying up, you try to go for it, you get a plugged lie in a greenside bunker. That's you taking on more risk for more reward. Or you can play it safe and just try to make the cut. So I think it's a lot of a mentality thing. So like what would Schenk have to do? This might not be Schenk specifically, but probably change his mindset, quite frankly. He plays a much, or in theory, could be playing a much safer game. It's interesting, though. We'll probably never know unless I can get him on and chat with him. Any reason not to gamble with Villegas? So there's something really good about Camilo Villegas, and there's something really bad about him. He is one of the better ball strikers since the restart, and he has very limited starts. Yeah, so here you go. So he only has 3 events in the restart, but this is all great, the ball striking stuff, right? He gains 8 at Sanderson Farms. He gains over 2 at Shriners. He's a very bad putter. Now, historically, he hasn't been. We can go back a couple of years or a year or so, and you can see there are stretches of golf that he was great with the putter, but things have kind of changed. If he can get back to that putting form, or at least not be as bad as he is right now, it's interesting. But unfortunately, I think he might be a long way from that, and there's just not really enough evidence to really consider him this week. I don't think. Kyle Porter liked it though on the First Cut podcast. I think he said something like Villegas was like 22-1 to finish in the top 5, which is kind of crazy. Those are long numbers. How do I feel about Ricky Barnes? Thank you for the question, DFS Chef. If golf tournaments were 6 holes long, Ricky Barnes would be the GOAT, like straight up. He's always the guy who jumps out on Thursday morning. He's 3 under through 4. He's 4 under through 6, and then things go awry. But I will say, he's grading out number 1 in my model. That concerns me a little bit. But I will say he's very cheap. I think he's sub 6,500. Oh, 6,300. And what you're asking for there is a made cut, which is what you're alluding to, and I think it's astute. Yeah, I think it's fine. He's probably nowhere close to my number 1 golfer, right? He's probably a top 40 golfer for me at this point. Any tips for predicting ownership? So I've been very transparent about this. I don't create my own ownership. I pull it from 3 different sources, then I grade them, and I've been keeping track of grades, and then I pass the best along. So I'm not very good at it. I don't know what the tips would be. Recent form, unfortunately, the more people talk about them, right, that drives ownership, right? I mean, if no one talked about Justin Suh this week, he might be 6%. But he gets talked about around the industry, and he's probably 20%, right? I mean, he's not someone that's a household name. So a lot of content drives this stuff, especially weeks like this where there's not many general fans playing. There's not many people who are like, oh, it's Masters Sunday, let me throw some lineups in. They're like, oh, I'm dying to play the Bermuda Championship. Like that's not happening. Foggy Minded says Windfinder, so I think that's windfinder.com, has a weather station right by the golf course. It's called Hog Bay. There you go. Perfect. Check it out. I'll check it out after we get off the stream. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, okay, so Jesse mentions this Brendan Todd broken toe thing. I didn't know if that was, if that story was out. So I had heard about this a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know if that was public knowledge or not. And I didn't necessarily want to break it or allude to it because I wasn't 100% positive on it. I didn't know if it was confirmed or not. So, and I also thought it was interesting that he was still playing, right? So if you're still playing on a broken toe, you are, I don't know how much he thinks it's impacting him, but what I did notice is, I mean, and I think he did it after the US Open, and he's been pretty objectively bad with his irons, or I'm sorry, with his driver and with his irons since then. So I kind of believe that he broke his toe and it's impacting him, but it's funny that this came up in the chat because this is, I don't know if they ever addressed this officially or not, and I didn't want to be the guy who called it out and was wrong about it. So I was just keeping a close eye on Todd, and I mean, something's going on. The game's not sharp. It might be that toe. No fades video this week. My bad. So life got in the way this week. We were dealing with the California wildfires, and we didn't know if we were evacuating. And I was doing a bunch of content other places. I recorded the bets and one and done video much earlier than usual because I wasn't sure if we were gonna have to leave the house. So there will not be a fades video this week. Apologies. We can kind of talk about it, and I can kind of look through the ownership because that's kind of where some of my fades would have come from. So let me look at this real quick. So as much as I love Peter Malnati, and as much as there is evidence, at least for 2 weeks, for 2 starts, that if he continues what he's doing, he's going to be great. To see him at potentially 20 to 25% ownership, I think is kind of bonkers. We're using a very small sample size there. Now that he's had a couple of weeks off, can he continue that? That would be a fade for me and a concern, right? Like with multiple weeks off for basically every single golfer in this field, I'm looking at long-term form. I'm kind of resetting the clock on a lot of these guys. So that means, I buy in on Patrick Rodgers. I probably sell on Peter Malnati. That would be a fade for me. Who else is in here that concerns me? I'm looking at ownership. Aaron Wise at 16% is kind of shocking. I have like zero. He probably wins it now, but I don't know how Wise gets there. And then Adam Schenk. Listen, I love Adam Schenk. I've literally talked about him probably each of the last 6 weeks. I love him as a cut maker. My only concern is he's now up to like 16 to 20% ownership, depending on the contest. And also now he's 8,100. You can't just make the cut at 8,100, right? Like it was cool when Adam Schenk was 6,800 and all he had to do was make the cut and he got you value. At 81, you got to kind of do better than that. And you got to finish in the top 25 or something like that. So I love Adam Schenk. I think at this price point, at the ownership, he's probably a fade for me. So those would be guys that I'd be staying away from kind of game theory wise and all that stuff here. Cal says, Michael Gligic, dark horse. Yeah, baby. Let's go. $6,500. He's been pretty good. Jonathan Bell. Oh, tell me about it, Jonathan. Jonathan says, been following your picks. You've been so close to outrights the last couple of weeks. I was absolutely scorching with outrights when the restart happened. And in the last, I feel like 5 or 6 weeks, I have just had the board peppered and I can't get a win. I was all in on Xander a couple of weeks ago. He had that 54-hole lead. I think I had Matthew Wolff tickets. Even last week I think I had JT, Munoz, Bubba. So basically every round one of those guys was in contention. They were feeling it. Things were going well. But yeah, I just haven't been able to cash them. Now, luckily, I've been backing a lot of them up with manual each ways, top 5s and top 10s. But man, it's been tough. It has been, and that's golf, right? I mean, it's hard to pick one winner out of a whole field in a sport that's this volatile. But yeah, we've had a lot of really close calls over the last couple of weeks. Rachel says, thanks for giving my husband a quality golf show to watch. I've never seen him so excited about spreadsheets. I'm actually shocked that people are as interested in the data as I am, right? Like, I'm not trying to give too many hot takes. I'm trying to look at the data and go from there. And I love it when people are like, oh, show me that. Show me. Like, it's cool. So much appreciated. Patrick Rodgers is dead to me. I'm going to give him one more crack. If he burns me again, I think you're right. How chalky is Tyler McCumber? I have him between 7-ish and 11%. Tyler McCumber for this week. Greg just deposited on Jock Market. No idea how it works though. Quick explanation. So you can go back in the live chat. I won't do another rant on it. You can go back in the live chat. Or I have also a video somewhere on Rick Run Good YouTube channel that says, like, if golfers were stocks or something like that. Basically, you can buy and sell right now before the tournament starts, and during the tournament, shares of golfers for either real money or for a free roll. And in the free roll, depending on your standings, you win real cash. So it's a lot of fun. Go check it out. I love it. Oh, I just lost my spot. The YouTube thing jumps all over the place. Is it still Wes Bryan week? I mean, yeah, unfortunately, he's going to be like 20% owned, right? But I really do believe, I mean, listen, when you lose 17 weeks in a row off the tee, and then you gain on your last 4 just by a tiny bit, and you have good irons, and you have the ability to get hot with the putter, and this is a really short course, and you're one of the shortest hitters on tour. If there was ever a week to eat the chalk, I guess it's now. And also, like, I'll just differentiate other places. So I still think it is. It might be super square, but I still think it is. Do I take any stock in Pro-Am scores? No. We talked about Villegas. Rewind a little bit. Pat Rogers will win. Rick's so cute. Wow, thank you. I should stay on for the compliments. Much appreciated. All right. I think I'm at the end of questions. I don't see any more questions here. So here's what I'll say. And again, I kind of ranted on this a little bit. The wind is one thing. Trying to find individual players with results of wind is tough. Keep an eye on the waves, though. So quick hunch says probably Thursday PM, Friday AM might be a smidge better. Remember that this can all change. So in the next couple hours, like I'm gonna check again tonight, or maybe wake up super early tomorrow. Probably not. That would be like 3 a.m. on the West Coast, and see if the wind has changed at all. But I would look at waves of players instead of individual players because there's a lot of issues with that. Otherwise, Bermuda Championship. We are just mid-sprint to Augusta. There's a lot of great stuff going on. If you want to get in on RickRunGood.com, obviously, I highly encourage it. I think it's great. All the tools are on there. I guess that's it. Download Jock Market. Enjoy. It's great. I'm in Vegas right now. I'm going to go put some Masters bets down at the Sportsbook, I believe. Maybe I'll tweet some out at RickRunGood. I don't know. Follow me there. As always, seriously, really appreciate you guys joining me for an hour and just chatting and jiving and all that good stuff. Appreciate you bearing with me. Having a couple of different setups here and being on the road and not in my usual setup, but really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Good luck this week, and talk to you later. See ya.